I want to bring in Delaware's Democratic Senator Chris Coons, a member of the Judiciary and Foreign Relations Committees. Mr. Senator, I appreciate your being with us. First, want to get your reaction to these reports that Governor DeSantis may be considering additional migrant flights to your home state.
Well, Peter, this is really regrettable. I'd argue even despicable to take human beings who are here seeking asylum and use them as pawns in a political stunt to spend at least tens of thousands of dollars, if not more, on chartering a small jet, flying them to a place they don't realize they're going to under false promises of housing and jobs. I've communicated regularly with Governor Carney, with our congressional delegation, with local leaders in the area of Georgetown, Delaware. We will be ready to welcome them and support them. Our governor is leading that effort. But the Delaware way is to welcome people and to give them the support they need and deserve in our state. I recognize, as do many of my colleagues, that we have a broken immigration system, that we need to make legislative changes here in Congress to address some of the challenges to our asylum laws, to our immigration system, to how we manage and support immigration into our country. We have a dramatic need for legal immigration to meet our economic needs, but we're not delivering those solutions. And I think what Governor DeSantis is doing to use people as pawns for a political stunt is just profoundly regrettable.
Let me ask you a question then on that very topic, Senator Coons. Right now we're hearing from the Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, the top Republican in the Senate, who has been applauding these Republican governors' efforts to send these migrants to some of these more blue, more Democratic-leaning states. He said the following today: these well-to-do blue enclaves are finally witnessing the smallest fraction of the challenges that open borders have forced on working-class communities all across our country. Your response to that effort, that some of these blue states, as he describes them, should share some of this burden?
It is nothing new that there is migration into states like Delaware, blue states. This has been going on for a very long time. We have a strong agricultural sector and we have a strong immigrant community, particularly in southern Delaware. The difference is in how we respond. We respond by being, I think, welcoming and supportive, and by recognizing that America is strengthened by immigration. We can and should do more to strengthen our immigration system and to ensure that immigration into the United States is legal immigration. But this strikes me as a political stunt that's just designed to get on TV by luring people onto a charter jet and then dropping them in places like Martha's Vineyard. It is not new for there to be new Americans or new immigrants into places like the beach resorts in southern Delaware. So I disagree with the ranking member here in the Senate.
Mr. Senator, maybe one last question on this. There's other topics I want to hit as well, but you're a lawyer. Have these governors, DeSantis and Abbott, have they broken the law here?
Well, what they've done is certainly, I think, inhumane. I'll leave it to the sheriff in Texas who's investigating it to conclude whether or not this was actually luring under false pretenses the legal standard that amounts to human trafficking or kidnapping.
Let me ask you about another topic right now. That's the topic of Ukraine. More than a dozen Republican senators at this time are pushing for this clean government funding bill, the CR as we commonly describe it around here, without another multi-billion-dollar investment in the war effort. Do you think there are going to be enough Republican votes for this effort to pass, particularly as the Ukrainians are demonstrating the ferocity of their counteroffensive and their ability to regain land there?
This is exactly the moment to continue our strong support for Ukraine, both militarily and economically. They've recaptured an area larger than Delaware, more than 3,000 square miles of Ukrainian territory previously occupied by Russian invaders. The systems, the weapons that we have successfully deployed to the front lines that the Ukrainians are using to enormous effect are giving them a real chance here at retaking their territory. I think ultimately, Peter, there will be enough Republican and Democratic votes to support President Biden's request. President Biden has pulled together our NATO allies, our European and global partners in support of Ukraine in a way that is making a critical difference in standing up to Russian aggression and brutality. We should continue supporting that here in the Congress. And, Peter, one other thing we're going to do here today that I'm very excited about is ratify the Kigali Treaty. It will create thousands of new manufacturing jobs in the United States and help us export a cleaner, less environmentally harmful refrigerant invented in Delaware and made broadly throughout the United States.
Nice plug for your home state there as well. Let me ask you one other question, if I can. Mr. Senator, on the topic that the president made headlines on 60 Minutes this weekend, do you agree with his assessment that the pandemic is over? I guess the simple question is the pandemic over?
It's not over, and if you look at the transcript, the president was walking around the floor of the Detroit Auto Show and commenting on the fact that folks were present and engaged in not wearing masks. From the whole context of his comments, it's clear that he understands there is more public health work to do to get us completely clear of this pandemic. But what he was commenting on was we are back to being able to congregate in large numbers, to go to football games, for kids to go to school, for restaurants to be open. And he was celebrating the fact that the Detroit Auto Show was fully reopened. So in that context, yes, the shutdowns are over, but we still have to invest in delivering the next generation of vaccines to keep Americans protected, particularly more medically vulnerable and older Americans. We still have work to do to get completely clear of this pandemic.
So to be clear to those Republicans who sort of pounced on that language and said, well, if the pandemic is over, the U.S. doesn't need additional relief funding, your argument is, no, the pandemic is not formally over. COVID remains with us. We need that money, correct?
That's correct. And frankly, I've also been fighting hard, Peter, for global funding. The last several variants that made the pandemic last longer and be more lethal here in the United States came from outside our country. And as full global travel has completely resumed, we are at risk if we don't make sure that effective vaccines are being delivered globally so that this pandemic can truly, finally be behind us.
Senator Coons, we always appreciate your time and your perspective. Thanks for being with us here.
Thank you, Peter.